don't understand it. You're changing, no, I can't stand it. My heart can't take this damage.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks again for stopping by. My last video was a Cypress IO video that I did, just kind of messing with it for a little bit. But if you didn't really care about that, that's completely okay. I'm uploading this so that you have something else to watch, and hopefully you'll like the topic that I'm going to be going over. I'm basically just going to be talking about my experiences so far and some takeaways that I had during my job interview and whatever, all the way up to job hiring from beginning to end and everything. Pretty much my experience on that. So if you really want to hear about that, then let's go. So the first thing that I want to say is, did I have did I get any benefits from talking to a recruiter? And I will gladly say hell no. So I talked to so many recruiters, and a lot of them just randomly would email me, and 90% of the time they won't even tell me what the company is or what they actually do or anything like that. They just wasted my time, called me early, like super early in the morning, and woke me up, or called me just super late at night, interrupted what I was doing, working with the part-time groups and all that. So they just they were just very not helpful. Mind you, I didn't talk to a recruiter for an actual company that I know of. I don't even know, because they didn't give me much details. None of them ever led to an interview with a company or an interview with a hiring manager or anything like that. They all asked for updated resumes, even though my resume was pretty up to date. I don't know, and they would send me stuff that just was completely irrelevant to what was in my actual resume. I guess they thought that they expected me at this point to have 13 years of experience, which is not the case. I don't know, because that's what they were sending me. So I personally didn't have a great time with recruiters. Maybe you will, so I don't know. Everybody else's experience may vary, but I cannot recommend any recruiter at all, ever. At least not right now. Maybe later on, once I have more experience and everything, I can say, man, recruiters are the best. They really care about you and blah, blah, blah. As far as where I was at that time, they did not care. They didn't do anything for me except waste my time. So, moving on. What do I think was one of the biggest takeaways during the interviewing process for me was soft skills. I think that talking with humans at some point becomes a lot more difficult for us the more that we dive into programming and software development and all that. I think that at some point we lose the ability to be able to have a good conversation with other people and to answer their questions and talk appropriately. So we kind of lose that ability. So being able to practice that, I think, really helped me out a lot. I'm now very comfortable talking with people and answering their questions, and even researching the type of people that I'm going to be talking to in order to direct my conversation and my questions, and to be able to kind of predict what kind of questions they'll have for me. So when you're going to have an interview, if you know who your interview is, look them up on LinkedIn and just see what it is that they've done. Go to the company site and see if their name pops up on any on any blogs or anything like that, and just read through some of that. Get a feel for the person before then. Get a little bit of a history lesson on them, and then that'll help you direct a lot of your questions. For instance, if I'm talking to an HR person who doesn't have a background in tech, then I might not want to ask this person too much about the details of the stack and technologies that they use and all that. They might be able to give me a high-level overview of it, but let's say you're going to a consulting agency and they're using different technologies all across the board. It's going to be pretty difficult for them to really round it out for you and give you any small details. So instead, you can take a look at how long this person has worked with this company, and then really get a feel for it, especially if you can see another company in their list, and you can kind of have them compare the two. You can ask them, so I saw that you worked at this other company for about 5 years, and then you came to this company, you've been here for about 2 years. So since you've worked in between those two companies, what would be the difference to you? What makes you want to stay at this company instead of going back to the other one? And then it'll give them a good starting point where they can communicate more so with an actual experience, so they don't have to kind of fumble around themselves. You're kind of helping them out to answer that question and be a lot more direct with what it is that you want. Certain things that you can ask them is about the culture. What do you guys think? Like, as far as like the work time schedule, if you're one of those people that really cares about work and life balance and all that, how does this company handle that? And so they would be the type of people to ask that to. Also, health insurance and benefits questions and things like that. And then once you get it further along and you go and talk to somebody who's more in a technical position, such as a hiring manager or something like that, then which will usually be like the second or third interview or something, if it's not the first. And you research this person and you see they have a technical background. A lot of them started off as software engineers or developers for that company, and then kind of worked their way up. So you'll be able to ask them more detailed questions about the technologies and the stack and what their workflow is like. I think that was a good question for me to ask at my last interview was, what is your pull request workflow like? And basically, we immediately both stood up and we got onto the wall, and he got a marker out and just started drawing out this little Kanban board and started showing me the flow of things and how things would move around. And that was very interesting to see and very interactive. Both of us were kind of just putting things in and really getting into it. So it showed interest in, that I was interested not just in like the pay and benefits and all this other stuff, but also like their general workflow and getting to know the process and just hopping in and being a part of it. So every time that I asked a question about it, I would inject myself into it. And I was like, okay, so if I were to pull a pull request over here, and then once it goes through here and I write my comments down on GitHub, I'll push it on through over here, and then this person will look at it and then they send it back. So at what point am I allowed to start a new feature? So I'm injecting myself into this conversation and helping them picture. Another question that I asked them was, okay, let's say you hired me after about 30 or 40 days, like what would make you believe that you made a good choice in hiring me? What could I possibly have accomplished within that time frame? And so that's another thing that'll inject you into that position, and also lets them think about what you would actually have to do. Like if they visually like just fleshed out this role, these are the things that you would have to do. And so that gives you great insight into what the actual position is, because the job description might not be able to tell you so much. And then also their description might be lacking when they give you the spiel that they usually give you at the beginning. So I think that that's good. And notice that a lot of the stuff that I'm going over at this point is soft skills. None of it is algorithms, data structure, and all that. That's all still very important to know. But what's going to really get you through to that second, third, and fourth interview or whatever is going to be your soft skills. There was one company in particular that did a 6-hour interview with me, and it was 5 engineers back to back and all that with no breaks in between. And I hated that company, and that's the first time that you'll ever hear me say that was a shit company. I will never curse like that in the channel again, but that's the first time you'll hear me say it, because I think that is a horrible way to interview anybody. Because let's say that you actually get hired for this position. Are you telling me that for 6 hours straight somebody's going to be talking to me every single step of the way? Probably not. We're probably not going to work this way where I'm going to be over here whiteboarding for 6 hours straight, so why would you do it during an interview? What kind of sense does that make for 6 hours straight? I'm an introverted person. I don't enjoy talking to people for a long time, and it's hard to tell through these videos. I do enjoy talking to people, just not for 6 hours. And so for me, that's very draining. And for a company to do that, they're not going to get the experience out of an engineer that they would, unless they just want to hire somebody that can talk for 6 hours straight, in which case they don't want an engineer. They just want somebody that can talk a lot. Maybe they're a really quiet office and they're tired of that, and they just want somebody that can talk a lot. So for me, that was a horrible experience. As far as anything else, negotiating is extremely important. You should already have a number in mind by the time you're going to that first interview. You can defer it for later based on the benefits and everything else, but you should already have an interview in mind. There's a number in mind. There's a lot of people that say that whoever says the number first loses, and it's kind of true, because if I tell you that I want 70,000, then I'm kind of locked in at 70,000 at that point. So when I tell them that I want more than that, they're going to be like, wait, you just said 70,000. Don't you know what you want? So it's going to look like you don't know what you want. So have a number in mind and stick to that. If that number sounds ridiculous in your head, then it's a good number. Uh, don't undersell yourself. If I'm trying to hire you for a software engineering position and you're telling me that you're only worth $50,000 or less, then I'm not going to take you seriously, because it's going to sound like you're pretty much garbage at that point, because software engineers are worth a lot more than that. And so if you're coming to me with a very, very low number for our area, for our market value, then you didn't research the market value. You didn't take the time to do that. You undervalue yourself. You don't think that you're that good. So these are the things that you're telling a hiring manager. So have a number in your mind. Also have counter numbers in your mind. And also think about the things that you would want, such as relocation assistance, PTO, maybe an earlier scheduled review date, to try to get your promotion earlier or whatever. So those are things that you can think about while negotiating. So have that stuff written down. Really go over it. Maybe go over it with somebody else that you trust, and ask them if it makes sense. Research the market as much as possible. When they come back, they're gonna try to give you the lowest number possible, just because it's common sense that if I'm buying candy bar for like 50 cents, then I'm gonna tell him, okay, 50 cents, and then he's gonna want to come back with something more. It's a bad analogy, horrible analogy. I just came up with that. I'm sorry. I'll never do that again. But but essentially, they're gonna try to go for the lowest number. And at that point, that's when negotiations kick off. And now you have to be clear as to what number it will actually take for you to say yes. At the bare minimum, if you give me 70,000, I'm gonna tell you that my bare minimum will be 80,000. Something like that, between 80 and this number here. I need to get somewhere within this window. And if I don't get within this window, then these are the other things that I'm willing to negotiate for. But you have to be clear with the company. A lot of people don't like the awkwardness of it, and I completely understand. But there's two different ways that you're gonna have to communicate, either through email or talking over the phone. There's some things that you can't really get across when you're just going through email, and a lot of times the company is still gonna want to call you even if you send an email. For me, when I sent the email, they called me up right afterwards and we talked about it. So they put me in a position where I had to talk about it regardless of what I wanted, which was okay. But just be clear about what you want. And then from there, just stick with it. You might end up having to tell the company no if they're not willing to give you what you need. And, on goes the job search. Such is life. So, but that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I didn't want to make this video too long. It's already about 13 minutes. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to put them on down, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.